Canada decided that losing the economic trade war was not enough, so they wanted to ramp up the breakdown in U.S.-Canada relations by choosing to stand up to the U.S. through actual defensive and army spending, where we move away from the U.S. and are now hiring foreign mercenary soldiers to protect Canada's sovereignty. That's a real thing that Canada is choosing to do right now, and Matt Walsh has been commenting on it and other things. He has the Canadians spiraling online, but I have a bone to pick with Matt Walsh. Something he said is not a good idea. We got to call that out. Speaking of crazy Canadian shenanigans, we have a bunch of drama around the MPs. One MP just decided to betray all of his voters and Canada, switch from being conservative to liberal, and then one of the few conservative MPs was thrown under the bus by the Conservative Party. But don't worry, the government-mandated work camps are ramping up, and Canada's economy is being kept alive through government spending and deficits, and I'm starting to feel really bad for conservative boomers inside of Canada because the liberal boomers are doing so much damage to their reputation that the boomers in Canada are single-handedly going to go down as the ones who ruined Canada. Not a good look, and Canada is proving not only is Canada crazier than California, it's somehow also worse with money management. There is a lot to talk about in today's video, so let's get into it. Getting into the first story of Canada's economic self-destruction, the details around this, very funny before we get into all of the military, defense, and sovereignty spending.
Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney wants to create the world's largest trade alliance, which does not include America. Edward Lawrence at the White House. Edward, I'm sure President Trump is not happy with this.
Single-handedly going out of his way to antagonize Donald Trump and the Americans. It's on purpose. If people don't see that and they don't want to admit that, go right ahead. But the idea that he wants to start this trade organization that doesn't include the US, and they're trying to really bank in on Europe being the nexus of global trade and how Europe is the one who we're going to rely on. Europe's falling apart. Europe isn't going to exist in 20 years. Every other country in the entire world trying to get a deal done with the United States. Canada directly antagonizing them. So funny.
Yeah, let's just say it has the attention of the White House. A White House official pointing out to me that 80% of the Canadian population lives within 100 miles of the U.S. border, and 75% of the Canadian exports come to the United States.
Every time I say that stat, not to interrupt, I'll let him talk in a second, but every time I say the stat about almost all of Canada is huddled up to the U.S. border for economic warmth and security, but people pretend like that doesn't mean anything, like that there's not a legitimate reason that Canada is that physically close to the U.S.
That official also adding that it's in Canada's best interest to improve trade relations with the United States rather than fight sheer economic growth. The Canadian Prime Minister so far, though, going the other direction. Prime Minister Mark Carney negotiated a tariff deal with China that allows more Chinese imports into Canada. The Canadian Prime Minister leading conversations to link the Trans-Pacific Partnership 11-country bloc with the European Union 27 member states to create a rival trading bloc to the U.S. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith tells me Canada wants to protect itself.
It's so funny because the EU and South America just finalized a trade agreement so that they can start selling each other agriculture products. And that deal started in like the 90s. So they're just getting that deal done, finalized now. And the Europeans still had farmers complaining about it and rioting against it. And now somehow this new largest trading bloc in the world is going to get put together without any issue and take on the US. Oh, so funny.
We have a very integrated market with the United States, but we also know that we have an opportunity to be able to provide support to our friends and allies, whether it's on energy security or food security or any of a number of other products. And so the United States enjoys robust trade relationships with the world, and Canada does too.
Again, they always keep spinning it like, yo, well, you know, we have the right to diversify our trade. Yes, you do have the right to diversify your trade. Get the concrete and strong relationship done with the US, and then diversify your trade with the rest of the world in a growth scenario. Not remove the current trade from America to try to take it somewhere else. It's called growing through diversification.
Now, President Donald Trump taking offense to the Canadian trading moves while hinting he might not renew the USMCA North American trading bloc.
Negotiations often are tough and contentious, but the reality is that Canada's side, the president has used tariffs and his rhetoric and his negotiation style to now secure over a dozen historic trade deals that have leveled the playing field for American workers.
And it seems to keep paying off for the U.S. And then we did get this article here from the New York Times that Trump is mulling a North American trade pact without Canada. We continue to hear that. And maybe it's because Canada is actively antagonizing the U.S. One of those stories with antagonizing the U.S. is how Carney is unveiling his defense industry plan aimed at protecting Canada's sovereignty. That's what they keep calling it. That's what they keep saying. And they keep basically hinting, without directly calling out the U.S., without naming the U.S. directly, they keep saying it's for our own sovereignty from threats we are facing. By the way, unrelated, but our entire defense plan that we're building is going to be based around us moving away from American suppliers. We won't be using American companies, American military companies anymore. We're going to have to get new ones. We're going to start Canadian ones, anything to not deal with America, but we're not declaring the U.S. an enemy. We are going to say every single thing that makes it antagonizing to the U.S., but we're not going to say it. We're just not going to say it.
Well, Prime Minister Mark Carney has released a new defense strategy. The $6.6 billion plan aims to build more military equipment here in Canada, buy materials from Canadian firms, and to increase Canada's defense exports by 50%. That goal is also to create 125,000 new jobs by 2035. In his announcement, Carney said, quote, "We know that the world has changed and that Canada must change with it."
Yeah, we know that the world has changed and Canada must change with it. The world, Mark, can you think of anybody that you might be directly addressing? You know, people who you've actually called out in other speeches saying that the world's changed. This is another government paid for program, aka taxpayer paid for program, to build up another industry and allegedly create jobs that is just more government spending to pretend that Canada has an economy, to pretend to keep Canada afloat. And you'll see that's a theme in this video. Almost all of Canada's economy is being held up through government spending now. If we didn't have the government continuing to launch these programs where they pay for everything, Canada would be in such a massive economic depression, and people are just not really understanding how bad that would be. And maybe they don't understand because we continue to get insane announcements from the Liberal government of Canada. I couldn't believe this announcement. I thought it was a joke because it sounds so fake. The Liberal government of Canada is saying to protect our sovereignty, for Canada to protect our sovereignty, needs to open a new immigration pathway where we bring in foreign soldiers to serve in Canada's army to defend ourselves against the U.S. Yep, there you go. That's going to help defend our sovereignty and keep Canadians safe by the foreign mercenary armies that we are bringing in to Canada. That's not a liability. That's not crazy.
And finally, we are creating a new category for skilled military recruits to attract highly skilled foreign military applicants. Eligible recruits with a job offer from the Canadian Armed Forces, including doctors, nurses, pilots, can be invited to apply for permanent residence. They will be subject to the same security and all military requirements. This new category will support our government's commitment to strengthen our armed forces, to defend our sovereignty, and to keep Canadians safe. This category and other priority categories supports Canada's defense industrial strategy, which Prime Minister Carney announced yesterday, by adding a range of workers critical to support our sovereignty and security.
Sovereignty and security, they just won't stop hammering those words because they do the opposite of what they say. They want people to go insane. So right now, that insane lady, who's foreign, by the way, is now telling Canadians the way to have us secure and sovereign is to literally take Operation Curry Bomb to the next level by basically just having an Indian mercenary army come in and protect Canada against the U.S. Oh, in a strange coincidence, we are also trying to disarm the Canadian citizens, and then we'll have foreign legions on Canadian soil defending Canada while we're getting disarmed. But that's great. You got this stat shared here from Jeremiah Seamus. I don't know, man. Shout out to you. There are 10,000 more real estate agents in the Toronto Regional Board than there are active military troops in Canada. A funny stat that tells the story about Canadian priorities. 10,000 more real estate agents in the Toronto Board. By the way, a lot of those Agents are just foreign people who scammed their way in, by the way. We talk about it all the time, those foreign entrepreneurs, but it's hilarious to see the stat put out like that. For some reason, the elbows up crowd are just living in this fog of insanity, and they want us to think that we're the crazy ones when we're not. They are the absolute insane ones. But don't worry, Operation Curry Bomb, foreign entrepreneurs, all of that stuff, not a problem. What is a problem is Matt Walsh. So Matt Walsh wants to invade and overthrow Canada. Regardless of your political support in Canada, you should be vehemently against these foreign threats. You'd have to be an absolute traitor to support this. If you want unlimited immigration, foreign people serving in the Canadian Army, that's not traitor behavior. But if a political commentator from the US makes some comments online, keep in mind, he's not even in the government at all. Matt Walsh is an entertainer from the US. And people are saying, if you support this, you're a traitor. So funny how easy it is to get the elbows up crowd spiraling. This is one of the funnier comments that I saw. So Matt Walsh's original comment that got people spiraling was, I'm not being ironic at all when I say this. There's a better argument for invading and overthrowing the Canadian regime than there is for invading and overthrowing anybody else. This country is committing unspeakable atrocities right next door, and he's talking about, obviously Canada's behavior. This isn't talking about how our government is being outwardly antagonistic to the US, talking about defending ourselves against the US while all of these are happening as well. But it's just so funny to see these LARPing Canadians. We've got Charles here, obviously an anonymous account, but that's where a lot of these comments come from. But even though, we'll show you in a second, these are real boomer sentiments that exist. Invading Canada is beyond stupid. We can easily blend into America. You guys have extremely loose pew-pew laws, and you guys have a very poor track record at handling both insurgencies, stopping domestic issues, and other mass pew-pews. MAGA propagandists like you would live in constant fear. Here we have the tough guy Canadian! We're gonna take on the Americans. Operation Curry Bomb, not an issue. America, who 80% of our population is huddled up next to for warmth, who basically most of the Canadian population is employed through American commerce in some sort of capacity, that is crossed the line. I love these fake LARPing Canadians. It's so funny. But here's my issue with what Matt Walsh said. And I've said on the channel, Matt Walsh, we need to connect because I can give you all the inside details on how Canada operates. However, he said, if Trump invades Canada and overthrows their regime, I volunteer to be the interim governor of our new province until a new leader is elected. And I want to say, how dare you, sir? And this is me humbly speaking as a YouTube tycoon in Canada. And I agree with this top comment here. We want Emperor Marcus Rubius to be our governor. You would never be in charge, Matt Walsh. How dare you try to subvert and betray Emperor Marcus Rubius, Matt? How dare you? But anyways, this is the kind of propaganda we are getting in Canada, and I know Americans are going to get a laugh out of this. We just get hammered with this anti-Trump, anti-American propaganda that's literally having people stressed and scared. The boomers are freaking out, and the person they used is such a hilarious hypocrite. So this is called, Are Trump Threats Stressing You Out? You're Not Alone. And look at the person they interview. It's so funny that this works.
Canada lives because of the United States.
Prime Minister Carney in Canada caved to President Trump.
Why don't you just join our country, become the 51st state?
My Canadian heart just got ripped apart.
So here we have this strong, patriotic Canadian, just to set the tone. Her Canadian heart just got ripped apart. She's such a strong, defender of Canada, big old patriot. Here we go.
Lily Wexu is a French-Canadian originally from Montreal.
Step into the shadows and brave universal.
But now working and living in Los Angeles as a bilingual voice actress.
She lives in America! How funny is that? This is so funny. She lives and works in the US. I died laughing when I first watched this. This is the propaganda that we are getting. They brought on a woman who lives and works in the US to talk about how scared she is of America because she's Canadian. So this woman said, what's best for me as a Canadian is going and moving to America to further my career, to work in the field that I want to work in. I think it's better for me to move from Canada into the United States, but somehow America is so bad, and Donald Trump is just breaking her Canadian heart at the idea of the Canada-US crossover. So Canadians get the benefit of access to the American market. She's getting paid way way more money to work in America as a Canadian than she ever would back in Canada. But the idea that Canada gets taken over by the US or has more connection to the US and we're dealing with Trump and these threats is just crazy to her. It's so funny.
She's feeling helpless and scared when she hears the Trump administration threatening annexation and economic ruin.
Any talk of assaulting my country in any way, whether it's economic or territorially, I mean, I could cry right now.
You are assaulting America's economy by being a foreign person working in the US, taking a job that otherwise would have gone to an American as a Canadian. So you are benefiting from this relationship, lady.
She's not the only one struggling. A recent poll shows 4 out of 5 Canadians are feeling more fear than hope about the Canada-US relationship.
Okay, maybe that's because you guys continue to put out these hit pieces, these propaganda, all of this anti-American scary videos.
In the year ahead, Canadians were asked if they feel Trump will pursue more military operations, like in Venezuela, or if they feel that was an isolated incident. 3/4 say they expect more to come.
We're in a world now where the superpowers are just trying to get more. We're just live in a world where I think none of us are going to be safe.
Okay, there was a cut there, so I want to know what she said. But that being said, they brought in the Canadian woman from Montreal who's living in LA as a voice actor to be the geopolitical expert here. The geopolitical expert is the liberal voice actor from Montreal who's now living in LA. It's just peak Canada arrogance, peak liberal arrogance. Just that's who they chose to represent in this video. I was dying laughing. It's so funny. It's so much longer. Like, that was only in the first minute. Obviously, there's more to it. But we can continue to see that the mainstream media obviously is the enemy of the people. If you guys remember, we've talked about this guy before. His name is Jamil Javani. He is a conservative MP in the federal government. He is friends with J.D. Vance. He took a trip down to the U.S. to try and help rebuild Canada-U.S. relations as they continue to deteriorate, as we can continue to see our government, our media, every institution being like, we hate America, we're going to move on to someone else. We know that that's real. We know that this sentiment exists. So all Jamil said in this privately recorded call was that Canada's throwing an anti-American hissy fit and it's going to shoot us in the foot. So Viva Fry shared this clip here.
We are shooting ourselves in the foot if we continue this anti-America, hissy fit. And this is the kind of reason I'm trying to talk into our government and some of the liberals who have just gone way off the reservation on this. And, the ball is in Prime Minister Mark Carney's court. Like, I've offered to help him. I think it'd be awesome if we went down there together. I think we'd get a lot done working together.
The most normal, sane comments based in reality ever. And this is getting spun as him being anti-Canadian because he said the hissy fit that Canada is throwing, the anti-American rhetoric, which we're seeing happen. They're calling him crazy. They're calling him a traitor. So much so that Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party separated themselves from him in his comments and said, he doesn't represent us. He doesn't represent the party. He's doing his own thing. We didn't tell him to go down there. The Conservative Party is going out of their way to throw Jamil Javani under the bus. One of the few people who actually has, from what I can tell, real conservative values, which is ironic because his name's Jamil Javani. And that just goes to show where the Canadian Conservative Party stands right now, that when a conservative goes down, says, hey, I'll work with the liberals as long as we can fix this relationship with the US and move Canada forward, I think it's worth it. He gets thrown under the bus by the party, and that's why we had this breaking news right here, and it is showing how broken the Conservative Party is in Canada, that so many conservatives in federal government feel that they are this closely related to the liberals where they can swap parties. We'll get into the details of this in a second.
We're following breaking news. Another Conservative MP has crossed the floor to join the Liberals. Prime Minister Mark Carney says he's honored to welcome Matt Genero to his caucus. The Edmonton MP was elected in 2015 and has earned 4 straight mandates. Carney says Genero is a strong voice in international engagement and parliamentary diplomacy. And
So this has so many details. You could do a full video on this loser alone. The quick Coles notes are, he originally said he was going to retire. He was going to step down. He has not been working for months. He wasn't in there voting. And now out of nowhere, he said, I'm no longer a conservative. I'm now a liberal, which makes no logical sense. It's unbelievably corrupt because I've said this in other videos. You don't have to be part of an individual party and vote the exact same way as that party. He could have stayed a conservative and just voted how he wanted to. He could have voted, hey, this new liberal bill has come forward. I'm going to vote in favor of that bill and make sure that it passes because I agree with what they're saying. And he would have stayed a conservative, which his constituents voted him in as. Instead, he's going out of his way to become a liberal against the wishes of his constituents. And yes, everybody, you can blame Pierre for this. Obviously, this guy is a coward and a loser. However, eventually, you have to blame the hockey coach if the team isn't performing. That's the way that it works in almost everything else. If the entire team is not performing, this is now the third conservative who thinks that he aligns so well with the Liberal Party that he can betray his voter base and switch sides entirely. The Conservative Party of Canada needs a major overhaul. This guy was handpicked by conservative leadership to represent his riding. Handpicked. And that's why when you go through all of their voting records and you can see that all of these conservatives who represent the Conservative Party of Canada have been voting in favor of all of the brutal liberal bills. This guy's voting record is atrocious. He should never have been a conservative in the first place. More details around that, but just to show how hilarious the boomers are, how bad they continue to make Canadian boomers look, how bad they continue to break down the optics. By the way, you know, she might not technically be a boomer. I'm calling boomers pretty much all of the, 55, 60 plus crowd, even though not technically everybody's going to be a boomer. Some might be silent generation, some might be Generation X.
Well, that is great news for me because it means I can vote for him. I'm thrilled.
It's terrible.
That woman is thrilled that a Canadian sitting MP betrayed all of his voters and switched from conservative to MP.
He hijacked.
Sorry, conservative to liberal.
Our votes. Like, I just find it sick. I hate it. It makes me so mad. It makes me just lose faith in our system. It's corrupt.
So that woman is correct in saying, how could you not lose faith in the system? It's obviously corrupt. And as an Albertan who already feels like your vote is meaningless, as an Albertan who already feels like you're being betrayed by the federal government, now the actual people you've sent over to represent you in the federal government are betraying you at the federal level. Yeah, I think this is going to accelerate the Alberta separatism, and a lot of the people in Alberta who were sitting on the fence and said, look, we just need to get conservatives in charge of the federal government. Let's get Pierre in there. Let's get the team in there and we can stay in Canada. Now they're seeing, if we can't even trust that the conservatives at the federal level are even conservatives, what's the point? This guy's comments are the most important comment in the video, though.
That's great. We can elect him next time.
You like the Liberals?
Yeah, I like Liberals, of course. Yeah.
What do you think about people that switch teams like
I don't care about people. I only care about their party.
Well, that is great news.
So what that guy said there is the most important thing. He said, I don't care about people. I only care about the party. Because in Canada, technically, you don't vote for the prime minister, you vote for the person in your riding to represent your riding, and then the party with the most seats then is in control of the government, and then the prime minister is chosen from the party leader, blah, blah, blah. That's all the technicalities. Here's the reality. I guarantee you that guy doesn't even know the person who represents his riding's name. I guarantee you that 90% of Canadians who vote don't know the person who represent them in their riding's name. They think they're voting for either Mark Carney or they think they're voting for either Pierre. These elbows up tweets just continue to show us how this is clearly self-inflicted. It is clearly self-destruction, both economically, the destruction of the nation, the breakdown of social cohesion. Almost every single problem, which is mostly attached to Operation Caribomb and the other foreign entrepreneurs, has been championed and controlled by the liberal boomers. So here's Andrew Coyne, a huge voice in the Canadian liberal space. And notice he does not have one Canadian flag in his bio. And this is a post that was going viral, just showing Canada's immigration numbers and how they are just staggering. They have been horrible for Canada. And this person, who is a large, respected voice only on the liberal side, says, and it's a better country for it. So he thinks Canada is a better country for mass immigrating in tons of people. So that's good. Luckily, Richard Diaz called him out and he said, Yet another self-interested boomer cheering on garbage policy that benefits them and hurts everyone else while passing it on as virtue. It's getting boring now, and that's not the only tweet he used to call him out. He said the reason that boomers remain enamored with this government is straightforward. They are insulated from the worst and perhaps the most regressive policy decision in Canadian history. Open borders devalued wage, labor, crushed youth employment, lifted rents, and put home ownership out of reach. And he's got this chart here, and yes, we'll show in a second how Operation Curry Bomb was impacting Canada's real estate market. If Gurpreet wasn't working at KFC, Canada would be absolutely cooked. We'd been screwed. Well, let's check in on some of these. So we got this from Sammy 2.0. She said, food banks in Canada should start checking residency status because we've got this kindly foreign entrepreneur here showing us once again the value that these people bring to Canada, how they definitely like and enjoy fitting into Canadian society and not taking advantage of programs at all.
Today, I stopped by at one of the food banks here in Canada, and honestly, this place is a blessing to so many people. A lot of people think food banks are only for those struggling, but that's not true. Everyone uses the food bank. New immigrants, students, single adult families, everyone.
Yeah, everyone who scams the system. Everyone who's choosing to break down the social contract that food banks are meant for people who are desperate and in need to help them feed their family, to help them feed themselves. It is a charity meant for people in emergencies and desperate need. But luckily, the foreign entrepreneurs figured out the hack that you can just get unlimited free food by taking advantage of charity programs.
In Canada, you really don't have to go hungry. There is always a place like this ready to help you with groceries, snacks, and essentials. And the beautiful part, you can also become a volunteer and give back to the same community that supports you. So, if you ever feel shy about visiting a food bank, don't be. It's for all of us. Canada truly takes care of its people.
Canada takes care of its people. One comment he did say there, he said, you could volunteer with the food bank. Sure, go volunteer for the food bank. But the idea that, like, Canada takes care of its people. This guy's obviously not even Canadian, and he gets taken care of. We have record food bank usage. I wonder why. I wonder why the food banks are calling for a national emergency on the food banks and the food usage. A literal national emergency. That's what they are asking for the government to declare because of the amount of usage. And now we are seeing these people who came to save us, who came to help the economy, none of that being true, are abusing our charities and goodwill. How would we survive without it? Speaking of surviving, we got this story, another sad story, and this was another Canadian who lost their life because of Operation Curry Bomb and all of the foreign entrepreneurs like we just showed there. So this woman waited in the hospital. She didn't get treated for 11 hours. She actually went there twice. She went there once for 12 hours and then they sent her home. She came back, waited another 11 hours, and unfortunately lost her life because of cardiac arrest because she was not treated in the hospital. So this woman who had to wait because the Operation Curry Bomb and the foreign entrepreneurs needed to clog up our systems, and it's heartbreaking that her daughter has to deal with this. They interview her daughter. Her daughter's saying, my mom wanted treatment. My mom was there. This is such a nightmare scenario to think about, and this is so avoidable, but the government doesn't care. All they are doing is these fake make work projects that are pretending to keep the economy alive. Yesterday, we announced the landmark Build Canada Homes Agreement with British Columbia, one of 11 agreements across the country. We're working together to build more affordable homes at speed and scale using innovative prefabricated technology and Canadian materials. $25 billion, completely unnecessary. Not only is it going to be inefficient, it is setting all of this taxpayer money on fire. So we are not allowing market forces to adjust, which we know the market forces could adjust if, because we are seeing, as we have slowed down Operation Curry Bomb, not enough, but slowed it down, Canadian real estate prices exit holding pattern and dive towards hard landing. Real estate prices in Canada on both buying homes, buying condos, whatever, are all plummeting. In some markets, they are down 35% from peak prices. Rents are plummeting across the country. So we know once we stopped on the demand side, aka mass immigration and Operation Curry Bomb, the market forces adjusted and we now see the prices coming down. So not only do we not need to rapidly build the Canada homes, turns out, as I've said for years on the channel, just crank the lever down of the amount of people we've been letting into the country and market forces will adjust, but they don't care because they continue to set Canadian taxpayer money on fire. They continue to keep our economy alive, afloat, however you want to say, through government spending. It is insane, but the total compensation for federal employees is now over 83% higher than the Canadian average. It's $143K for the average federal employee versus $78K, and $143K is actually higher than the average combined household income across Canada. So yeah, with 55% of recent job growth being from public sector jobs, by the way, unproductive, overpaid roles, which are parasitic to Canada and unnecessary, but continue to let us pretend that Canada has an economy that could stand up to the US when we're not actually producing, we're not creating, we're not innovating, we are just hiring more people to work for the government. They buy more votes. And the government is so unbelievably bad with money that we now have this stat here that the state of California, one of the largest economies in the world, has projected that their budget will be $3 billion. British Columbia's economy, 10 times smaller, and the deficit is $13 billion. 10 times smaller population-wise, and it has $13 billion in deficit projected, over $3 billion from California. Yeah, Canada, I think you got some issues that need to be fixed in Canada. Canada, I think we need to take a second and realize that maybe the government's doing a bad job inside of Canada. And we don't need to be mad at Americans. We don't need to be mad at Donald Trump. What we do need to do is go to the American border, knock on the wall, beg for forgiveness, and beg for charity, because that is the only thing that's going to keep Canada alive, because our government is useless and we continue to be useless and prove ourselves. Not only are we bad with money, where's the money with California? Look how insane this story here, and this is so indicative of why Canada's crazy. We are walking around in an open air insane asylum pretending that Canada is a normal country, pretending that this is okay, and allowing people like this to get away with made up nonsense. This story is crazy.
My name is Alex Frederic Mignot. I pronounce it they, them.
Alex Frederic Mignot says they are satisfied with a ruling by Quebec's Human Rights Tribunal. Mignot complained that a salon's online booking system was discriminatory to non-binary customers. It was ordered to pay $500.
To see the tribunal side with me on that and say that, you know what, non-binary people shouldn't be forced to pick man or woman, and it's not fair for them. I was...
He's bald! This guy is bald, and he's suing a salon, and he won because it only had the option on the website to say man or woman. So this bald guy said, I have to choose man or woman. That offends me. You owe me $500. A government institution backed him up. This is why Canada will never survive, because somehow we're accepting stories like this as normal. Canadians, your government is torpedoing the country into the ground. They are doing it on purpose. Every country in the entire world is trying to deepen their integration with the US. Canada, who shares the largest land border in the world and more integration than any other country in the world, including all of the companies in Canada that are just American companies with Canadian operations. We have the most connection and integration with the US than anybody else in the world. We need to smarten up. Call things crazy that are crazy. Call things stupid that are stupid. And understand our government is betraying us and selling us out and bringing in foreign mercenary armies as they're disarming us at the same time. That is a recipe for disaster. Holy freaking smokes. Let's get real here, people. But if you made it this far in the video, you absolutely rock. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're trying to get these videos out in front of more people. We are trying to grow the channel. If you want to support the channel, you can do it through the link down below. You can also do it directly through YouTube. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.